This is The Alpha's Plus-Size Mate, Moonfire War, a paranormal romance audiobook enemies to lovers, written by Jackie Ketra.
The first thing I felt when I woke up was heat. Not just the regular kind, not sunlight, not blankets, but that deep, quiet, living warmth that came from the man next to me. Drake. Even asleep, he looked like a warning. Sheets tangled around his hips, that sharp jaw shadowed by stubble, a faint scar catching the morning light. His hand rested on my waist, possessive even in dreams. I told myself I'd get used to this, waking up beside him, sharing his room, the Pack mansion humming quietly beneath us. But there was something about lying this close to an alpha that made the air feel heavier, charged. The bond between us pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat under my skin. Every time he breathed, I felt it echo in me. I shifted carefully, trying not to wake him, but his fingers tightened on my hip. "You're up early," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "I'm human," I said, yawning. "We wake up before sunrise to question all our life choices." He cracked one eye open, golden and amused. "Regretting something?" "Sharing a bed with a space heater who growls in his sleep, maybe." He smirked faintly. "You like it." Unfortunately, he wasn't wrong. I rolled my eyes, sliding out of bed. "You keep telling yourself that, Alpha." As my feet touched the floor, the faint sting on my arms made me pause. I glanced down black lines, thin as spider silk, curved along my skin. They hadn't been there last night. "What the hell?" I whispered. Drake was instantly awake, sitting up, gaze snapping to the marks. "Rhea!" His voice shifted, not sleepy now, but sharp. "When did that start?" "Just now. They kinda look like—" He was already out of bed, crossing the room in a few long strides. His fingers brushed my arm, and the lines glowed. The same heat from the bond crawled up through the marks, humming under my skin. I looked at him, my heart thundering. "Drake, what's happening?" His jaw clenched. "Something's waking up inside you." "Okay, creepy way to start the morning," I muttered. "Be specific, please." He didn't answer right away. His eyes had gone distant, thoughtful, wary. "I've seen those marks before, years ago. They belonged to witches of the old bloodline before their kind vanished." "Fantastic," I said, throwing my hands up. "So, just to confirm, I can't even get a normal hangover. I get witch tattoos that light up when my overprotective werewolf touches me." He actually smiled at that just a little before it faded again. "We'll call Morella. She'll know what they mean." I sighed and sat back on the edge of the bed. And here I was, hoping for pancakes and a lazy morning. Drake cupped my chin, his thumb brushing my jaw. "You're not losing your lazy mornings," he said softly. "You're just gaining more reasons to survive them." I wanted to roll my eyes, but damn it, the way he looked at me made it impossible. Outside, I could hear pack members training, the echo of life going on. But deep down, I knew something had shifted again. And this time, it wasn't just inside me. Something out there had felt it too. By the time Morella arrived, the lines on my arms had spread all the way to my shoulders. Drake had called her the moment he saw how fast they were crawling, and she'd appeared less than an hour later, small, quiet, with silver hair braided down her back, and the eyes that looked like they'd seen too many centuries. She didn't greet me. Didn't even blink at Drake's half-bare chest or my confusion. She simply grabbed my wrist and hissed through her teeth. "Ancient sigils?" she whispered. "They shouldn't exist anymore." "Yeah, that's what everyone says right before something bad happens," I muttered. Morella ignored me. She lifted my arm closer to the light, tracing one line with her fingertip. The marks shimmered faintly, like molten gold. "When did they appear?" she asked. "This morning," Drake said, "right after she woke up." Morella's gaze snapped to him. "Did you touch her?" His brows furrowed. "Of course." "Then it's begun." Both of us stared at her. "What's begun?" I demanded. Morella sighed and straightened, her tone grave. The awakening of your lineage. You're not just a human with power, girl. You're a vessel of the old blood. A bridge between beast and magic. Okay, hold up. I raised a hand. That sounds poetic and terrifying. Can we unpack that a little? Drake crossed his arms. Explain, Morella. She nodded slowly. Long before the Pax ruled these lands, before vampires built their kingdoms, there was an order of witches known as the Ether Line. They were born from the first star's flame and the first wolf's heart. Their blood could control both command the beast, bend the spell. And you're saying? I trailed off. You, child, are their descendant, Morella said softly. And those marks mean your power is waking. Drake's expression hardened. That's why the vampires took her before, isn't it? Morella gave a single, tight nod. They must have sensed it, and if the marks are visible now, others will sense it too. I exhaled slowly, pressing a hand to my forehead. So, to summarize, I'm turning into some mythical hybrid magic bomb, and people are going to want to kidnap me again. Perfect. Love that for me. Drake's hand brushed my back, grounding, firm. No one's taking you again, Rhea. Before I could respond, the air in the room shifted. A cold wind snaked through the open window, snuffing out the candles one by one. Morella's eyes widened. No, she breathed. He's already here. Drake stiffened. Who? The scent hit before the figure appeared metallic, sweet and wrong. A man in a long black coat stepped out from the shadows, eyes glinting like garnets. The vampire messenger. He smiled faintly, his gaze sweeping from Drake to me. The blood moon alpha and his precious little anomaly. How charming. Drake growled low, stepping in front of me. You have 10 seconds to explain why you're here before I tear out your throat. The vampire's grin widened. My king sends his regards. He felt her awakening and offers an invitation. Not interested, I snapped. The vampire's eyes flicked to mine, and for a moment I swore I felt something sharp slice through my mind. He smiled. You will be. Drake lunged before I could blink, but the vampire dissolved into mist, his laughter echoing through the hall as the temperature dropped. When the air cleared, a single blood-red rose lay where he'd stood. Morella picked it up, her expression grim. This is only the beginning. Drake's hand tightened around mine, his jaw set in fury. And somewhere deep in my bones, I felt it again, that pulse, that burn, that promise that something inside me was waking. The night after the vampire's visit, the mansion didn't sleep. Drake's orders had turned the Blood Moon estate into a fortress. Patrols doubled, wards pulsing faintly across the grounds, guards moving like shadows beneath the moonlight. But no amount of protection could silence the pounding in my chest. I couldn't stop staring at my arms. The black lines were glowing again, faintly, like embers beneath my skin. Every time I tried to ignore them, they flared warm, alive, as if reacting to the power around me. And every time Drake came close, they blazed. I sat on the windowsill of our room, hugging my knees, staring at the full moon that hung low over the woods. The night air was cold, but my body wasn't. It hadn't been since the marks appeared. Drake entered quietly, his presence filling the room before his voice did. You should rest. I looked over my shoulder. You should take your own advice, Alpha. You've been out there since sunset. He gave a faint smirk, but didn't argue. Can't rest when the whole supernatural world suddenly remembers we exist. He came closer, slow, careful, as if even he wasn't sure what touching me might do. His scent hit me first, and that faint trace of smoke that clung to him after a shift. Your marks, he said quietly. They're brighter tonight. Yeah, I noticed. Maybe it's the moon, or the stress, or the fact that every time you come near me, I feel like I'm about to explode. His jaw tensed. It's the bond. Our energies are merging faster than I expected. Is that your fancy alpha way of saying we're becoming cosmic cellmates? That earned me a ghost of a smile. Something like that. He stopped right in front of me, his hand brushing a loose braid behind my ear. My skin burned where he touched. The glow along my arms pulsed in answer. "I'm serious, Rhea," he murmured. "Until we understand what your power is capable of, you need to stay close to me." I arched an eyebrow. "That sounds suspiciously like you just want me in your room." He chuckled, low and rough. "That's a bonus." The sound did something to me, something warm and reckless. I swallowed hard and looked away, pretending to watch the moon again. "What if this thing inside me isn't good, Drake?" I said softly. "What if it hurts people?" He didn't hesitate. "Then we'll teach it not to." Simple, steady, as if taming ancient power was just another task on his to-do list. I turned back to him, searching his face for any doubt, but there wasn't any. There never was with him. That kind of certainty scared me more than the marks did. Outside, the moon dipped behind a cloud, and for a moment the glow on my skin faded. I breathed in relief, and then the ground shook. A low rumble, deep and unnatural, rolled through the mansion. Distant howls echoed from the forest. Drake spun toward the window, every muscle going taut. "They're here," he said, voice cold steel. "Who?" Before he could answer, a figure materialized on the front lawn, tall, cloaked, surrounded by shadow. Even from up here, I could see the crimson eyes burning under his hood. Not just another messenger. This time, the Vampire King had come himself.
The instant I saw the crimson eyes burning in the dark, every instinct in me snapped to attention. The king himself. The wards around the mansion hissed like something alive. Wolves from the outer patrols shifted on sight, their growls rumbling through the night. I felt the entire pack's energy press against me, waiting for a command. "Hold the line," I ordered through the link. "No one moves unless I say." The figure didn't move either. He stood in the moon-washed field like he owned it, cloak whispering around him, air bending with the weight of his power. I could feel Rhea behind me. Her heartbeat had that fast, stuttering rhythm I'd learned too well. "Stay here," I told her, without looking back. She laughed under her breath, sharp, nervous. "Yeah, because that's worked out so great before." Her scent hit the air, warm, electric, and the lines on her skin began to glow again. I turned, catching the shimmer before she could hide it. The marks pulsed like living fire. "Rhea," I warned, "you can't let him see that." Too late. The vampire raised his head, and even from a distance, I saw the grin split his pale face. He already knew. By the time we stepped out onto the lawn, the temperature had dropped enough to frost the grass. The vampire's gaze slid over me and stopped on her. "So," he murmured, voice silk over razors. "The last of the ether line hides in a wolf's den. How poetic." Rhea stiffened. "If this is another join us or die pitch, you can save your breath." The vampire chuckled softly. "Oh, my dear, you misunderstand. I don't want you to join me. I want to complete you." I moved before she could answer, placing myself between them. "You're not touching her." He tilted his head, eyes gleaming. "You think you can stop evolution, Wolf? She was made for the darkness. Your kind will only burn trying to keep her." My claws itched to shift, but I forced control. The bond between us pulsed her fear, my fury, the same heartbeat. I could taste it in the air. "You talk too much," I said, and lunged. The ground shattered beneath my feet as I hit him. He moved faster than I expected, ancient speed, centuries of killing in a single motion. Claws met shadow. Sparks flew. "Drake!" Rhea shouted behind me. I could feel her power flaring, the air vibrating. "Stay back," I barked. But the words barely left my mouth before a surge of light burst past me. Her power exploded golden threads, snapping through the dark, slicing across the field. The vampires that had appeared behind their king screamed as the light seared them to ash. Rhea's eyes glowed bright, her hair whipping in the storm of her own magic. She didn't look human anymore. She looked like the beginning of something new. "Rhea." I reached for her, and the moment my hand touched hers, the light doubled. Power tore through me, through us both, a storm too wild to contain. The vampire king staggered back, shielding his face. "Impossible!" Then the blast hit him square in the chest. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. And then he was gone. Nothing left but ash scattered across the frost. The magic died as quickly as it came. Rhea collapsed, the glow fading from her skin. I caught her before she hit the ground, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Hey," I whispered, shaking her gently. "Stay with me." She blinked up at me, dazed. "I didn't mean to. I couldn't stop it. I know." I pressed my forehead to hers, still shaking from the energy. "You saved us." She gave a weak laugh. "You make that sound like a good thing." I looked around the field scorched, the night eerily quiet. It is. For now. Because somewhere deep in the woods, far beyond the wards, I could already feel new eyes watching. The king might be gone. But whatever power had answered through her, it had just announced itself to the entire supernatural world. And they would all come running.
When I opened my eyes, the world felt different. Quieter. Colder. Like the air itself was afraid to move. The ceiling above me was familiar carved beams, faint smell of cedar and smoke Drake's room. But my body didn't feel like mine. Every breath hurt, and my skin burned as if lightning still lived under it. I tried to sit up. Bad idea. My vision blurred and the room tilted. "Easy," came that low voice I'd come to recognize anywhere. Drake was sitting beside the bed, elbows on his knees, shirt half unbuttoned, hair a mess. He looked exhausted in a way that didn't suit him, like he'd been fighting shadows all night and lost a few rounds. "You've been out for 12 hours, he said quietly. "How do you feel?" I blinked at him, like I swallowed the sun and it's trying to claw its way back out. He huffed out a short laugh, relief flickering behind his golden eyes, but the tension didn't leave him. "What happened?" I asked. "The vampire king? Gone," he said flatly. "Turned to ash. You did that." The words didn't land right away. When they did, I sat straighter despite the pain. "I what?" Drake nodded slowly. "You unleashed something ancient. Morella's been trying to piece together what kind of power that was, but we've never seen anything like it." I swallowed hard. "Did anyone?" "No one from the pack was hurt." He paused. "But they saw everything." That sank like a stone in my chest. Great. So now everyone's terrified of me. He didn't deny it. I looked down at my arms. The black lines had faded into pale silver, like scars of light. When I brushed my fingers over them, they pulsed faintly alive, waiting. "I couldn't control it," I whispered. It used me." "I know." Drake leaned closer, his voice low. "That's why we'll learn to control it. Together." I met his eyes. "You're not scared?" Of you. He almost smiled, not even a little. That shouldn't have made my throat tighten the way it did, but it did. Outside the window, I heard distant murmurs the pack, voices, cautious and low, the sound of fear carried easily through walls when you were the reason for it. I swung my legs off the bed. I should talk to them. They deserve to know I'm not... Drake caught my wrist gently. Not yet. They need time. You need rest. I yanked my hand free. I don't need to be hidden away like some dangerous weapon. His eyes darkened Alpha hard. That's not what this is. The wards are down, Rhea. The Vampire King's death sent a signal across every border. Vampires, rogues, they all felt it. They'll come for you now. And if they find you before we understand what you are... He stopped himself, but I heard the rest anyway. They'll take you from me again. The room went still. The air between us too charged, too full of things neither of us were ready to say. Finally, I exhaled and sank back down. So, what now? Drake's jaw tightened. Now, we prepare. Morella thinks the Etherline blood hasn't fully awakened. That blast was only the beginning. I laughed under my breath. So there's more. Fantastic. He didn't smile. She also said something else. The more your power grows, the stronger the bond between us becomes. I froze. Meaning? He looked away, eyes flicking toward the window. Meaning what you felt before the heat, the pull it's going to get worse. For both of us. My heart stumbled. Worse how? His gaze returned to me, and I felt it all over again, the fire, the hunger, the magnetic force that had nearly torn me apart before. Worse, he murmured, as in harder to resist. That night, when he finally left the room to deal with his patrols, I sat by the fire and stared at my reflection in the window. The girl looking back wasn't the same one who'd walked into Blood Moon Pack weeks ago. She looked older, wilder, like something ancient was whispering behind her eyes. And deep inside, the marks pulsed again, a quiet, steady heartbeat that didn't belong to me. The Etherline wasn't done with me. And neither was fate. I thought sleep would help. It didn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them shadows with burning eyes, whispering my name like it was a spell they wanted to break. The forest bled into my dreams, the trees glowing faintly with that same silver light that now lived under my skin. When I woke, my sheets were damp with sweat, my heart thudding like I'd been running for hours. The marks on my arms were glowing again, not gold this time, but a deeper red, almost like veins filled with molten fire. And the whispers hadn't stopped. They were quiet at first, hushed like echoes underwater. But then they grew clearer. Child of the Etherline, come home. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voices came from inside. By the time morning broke, I'd had enough. I yanked on my boots, ignoring the ache in my legs, and stormed downstairs. The pack house was already awake training, others running errands, but every head turned when they saw me. Their gazes burned with the same thing I'd felt since the battle, fear. Morning, I said flatly, pushing through. No one answered. Fine, let them stare. I found Drake outside, shirtless again, of course, giving orders to 2 men by the border fence. His presence dominated the field, raw power wrapped in calm command. But the second he sensed me, he stopped mid-sentence and turned. Rhea. His tone changed soft, but edged with worry. You should have rested more. Yeah, well, the voices in my head didn't get the memo. That got his attention. He dismissed the 2 men with a nod, then crossed the space between us in 3 long strides. What voices? The ones that keep calling me child of the Etherline, like I'm some kind of lost goddess. Ring any bells? His jaw clenched. You heard them last night? I've been hearing them since last night. I tugged up my sleeve. The marks shimmered faintly, alive again. And these? They light up like Christmas every time they whisper. Drake's hand hovered near my arm, not touching, but close enough that the glow responded. They're calling you to something. he said quietly. No kidding. I just don't know what. He was silent for a moment, eyes scanning the tree line beyond the fence. Morella said the ether-line witches used to bind their spirits to places of power the Heartwoods. If your bloodline is waking, it might be trying to reconnect with them. So you're saying my ancestors are haunting me? His lips twitched. Something like that. Great, I muttered. Love family reunions. The rest of the day passed in a blur of paranoia. I couldn't shake the whispers. They followed me when I ate, when I walked the halls, even when I tried to shower, and every time I ignored them, the heat in my skin worsened. By dusk, I'd had enough. I slipped out. The wards around the mansion shimmered faintly, but they didn't stop me. The moment I stepped beyond the boundary, the whispers changed. They grew louder, clearer. This way. Find the route, daughter of flame. The forest was alive and with fog and moonlight. I followed the sound deeper, past the training fields and the river. The trees leaned close, their leaves rustling like voices. And then I saw it. A clearing. A circle of ancient stones covered in glowing runes, pulsing faintly in the dark. The air hummed with power that felt familiar, like my blood recognized it. I stepped closer. My marks flared. The whispers crescendoed into a chorus. Awaken the flame. The ground trembled. Light burst from the stones, wrapping around me, heat crawling through every nerve. I gasped, and then something answered from inside me. Power roared up, wild and unstoppable. My skin burned, my eyes stung, and for one terrifying second, I felt everything, the heartbeat of the earth, the shadows, the pulse of the moon above. And then a voice broke through the chaos. Rhea! It was Drake. He crashed into the clearing, eyes blazing gold, his wolf half surfacing under his skin. The glow from my body painted his face in firelight. Don't move, he ordered. Kind of hard when I'm glowing like a damn bonfire, I shouted back, but my voice cracked. He reached for me, and the moment his hand touched mine, everything stopped. The whispers went silent, the runes dimmed. Just like that, the forest exhaled. We stood there, both panting, his grip still on my wrist. The heat between us was unbearable, not magic this time, but something deeper, sharper. His eyes flicked to my face, and for a second the alpha mask slipped. Next time, he said quietly, you tell me before you walk into a supernatural death trap. I laughed weakly. Noted. He didn't let go. What did you see? I hesitated, glancing back at the stones. I think it was calling me home, but I don't know what home means anymore. Drake's jaw tightened. Then we'll find out. Together. He guided me back toward the mansion, his hand warm around mine. Behind us, the clearing lay quiet, but the stones still pulsed faintly. And when I glanced back one last time, I could have sworn I saw something step out from behind them. A shadow wearing my face. If there's one thing I've learned about werewolves, it's that they hold grudges like Olympic champions, especially female ones. It had been 3 days since my little light show in the woods, and the mansion was still buzzing about it. Everywhere I went, whispers followed. Did you see her glow? She made the forest shake. She's not one of us. Yeah, that last one stung the most. Drake had doubled down on my training schedule. Control before catastrophe, as he called it, but half the pack avoided me like I had the plague. The other half stared like they were waiting for me to explode again. And then there was Kara. The red-tailed she-wolf who'd been gunning for me since day one. The one whose nose I'd accidentally, not really, broken during our first encounter. I should have known she'd come looking for a rematch. The afternoon sun bled through the clouds when I walked into the training grounds. Dozens of pack members had gathered, some in human form, others watching from the edge in wolf forms. Drake stood near the sparring ring, giving instructions. His voice carried that natural authority that made even the cockiest wolves listen. When his gaze found mine, the corner of his mouth twitched. You're late." "I prefer fashionably delayed," I said, brushing a loose braid from my face. "It builds suspense." A few members actually snorted. That was when I knew the day might not completely suck. Until she stepped forward. Kara. Long limbs, red-streaked hair, golden eyes that gleamed with challenge, and that damn confident smirk that made me want to throw something. She circled the sparring ring like a predator. "Alpha," she said sweetly, though the word dripped venom. "Permission to challenge the outsider." The crowd went still. Drake's expression hardened instantly. "Kara, this isn't—" "Oh, come on," she purred. "We all saw her little magic trick in the woods. If she's supposed to be part of our pack, let her prove it." Whispers rippled through the wolves. "Prove it! Fight her! She'll crush her!" I crossed my arms, meeting Kara's gaze head-on. "You want to fight? You could have just asked nicely." Her smirk widened. "I don't fight witches. I exterminate them." "Cute," I said. "Just don't cry when you lose, Red." A sharp intake of breath went through the crowd. Someone muttered, "She's dead." Drake pinched the bridge of his nose like he was already regretting every life choice that led to this moment. "Fine," he said finally. "1 round. No killing. Kara, stand down if I tell you to." Kara gave him a mock bow. "Wouldn't dream of disobeying you, Alpha." "Liar." The circle cleared. I stepped into the dirt ring, my heart pounding. Kara stretched, cracking her neck, then shifted bones snapping, fur bursting forth until a massive red-tailed wolf stood before me. She was huge, muscles rippled under her coat, eyes burning gold. She snarled, lips curling over fangs the size of steak knives. I looked Kara in the wolf's face, then over at Drake, chin tipped just enough to make my point. "I thought this was going to be a fair game," I called out, voice deliberately loud. "Human to human." Kara trotted forward like she owned the dirt. I took a step back, and because my mouth is a terrible idea most days, I raised a hand and said, "Bitch, stay where you are. I'm not done talking." Then I turned to Drake, searching his face for the sermon, the command, the one thing that might make this feel less like being judged at a public execution. He didn't give me anything, not a word, not a look that said I won't let her, not even the faintest hint of favoritism. It was the look of a leader trying not to look like he's playing favorites. He wanted to say something, I could tell, but he didn't, and that made my skin prickle harder than the wolf's breath on my neck. "Back to Kara." Her wolf lowered its head and let out a low, deliberate snarl, a sound that meant "I will rip your heart out if you blink." The crowd leaned in like they were watching a Sunday show. "Okay," I said out loud, even though my pulse had gone traitorous. "How do you fight a wolf twice your size? If she were human, I'd have knocked her down, sat on her with all my weight and suffocated her until she shut up." I could see it so clearly in my head, me on top, knee in her chest, breath hot in her face, problem solved. But here was a wolf, 2 times the height. She had claws and fangs and muscle that didn't care about personal space. Sitting on her was not an option. Kara didn't look remotely intimidated. She lunged. And everything that came after felt like the moment someone pulled a wire in a storm. I barely dodged, sand spraying as her claws sliced the air inches from my throat. She moved with brutal precision, fast, lethal, elegant. I wasn't a fighter. I had instincts, sarcasm, and a growing fear that my next move might be my last. I ducked another swipe, adrenaline flooding my veins. "Kinda unfair, don't you think?" I shouted. "You get claws, I get sarcasm." Kara's growl rattled my bones. She pounced again, and I tripped backward, landing hard. The crowd gasped as she pinned me down, her hot breath fanning across my neck. Then, the marks on my arms blazed to life, not gold this time, not red, but pure white fire. It erupted across my skin, sending Kara flying back with a guttural yelp. The air shimmered with heat, dust swirling around me as power surged from every pore. I stood, trembling, my body glowing like the center of a storm. The ground cracked beneath my feet. Kara staggered up, growling, but the moment our eyes met, she froze. Her wolf whimpered. The white fire reflected in her gaze, and for the first time I realized she wasn't just seeing me. She was seeing something through me. Something old. Something terrifying. Her body dropped into a crouch, not an attack stance. Submission. The crowd was dead silent. The light faded as quickly as it had come. My knees buckled, but Drake was there before I hit the ground. His arm wrapped around me, grounding me with that steady alpha warmth. "Easy," he murmured. "It's over." My voice came out shaky. "Did I kill her?" Kara was breathing, eyes wide with fear. "No," Drake said, "but you showed her who she's really dealing with." I managed a weak grin. "Good. I was starting to think I'd have to start glowing on command." Drake didn't smile. His gaze lingered on the marks crawling up my neck. "You're changing faster than we thought." "Yeah," I whispered, glancing at my hands. "And I don't think it's done yet." That night, the pack was quieter than ever. Even Kara avoided my gaze during dinner, her nose still bleeding faintly. The others whispered less now, but when they looked at me, it wasn't fear anymore. It was awe. And that scared me more than their hatred ever could. The morning after the fight felt like waking from a fever dream. My knuckles were bruised, my body sore, but the whispers were louder than the pain. Everywhere I walked through the Blood Moon mansion, conversations went silent, eyes darted away. Even the walls seemed to hum differently, like they remembered what I'd done. I didn't remember everything, just flashes. Kara's wolf lunging, my body reacting before my mind, a burst of red light, a sound like thunder, and then her, lying motionless in the dirt, her fur scorched at the edges, the crowd staring like I'd just summoned death itself. Morella found me later in the hallway. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly, pressing a damp cloth into my hand. She was going to tear my throat out. "I know, but power like that doesn't just happen." Her gaze flicked to my chest, where faint lines like glowing veins pulsed faintly under my skin. "Something inside you is changing, Rhea. Fast." Before I could answer, every lamp in the hall blew out. The air thickened. The world went still. A chill rolled down my spine as symbols appeared in the air, burning, golden and shifting. Morella froze beside me, whispering something in a language I didn't know. Then 3 women stepped through the flickering symbols, cloaked, hooded, not walking gliding. Their scent wasn't wolf. It wasn't human either. Witches! The tallest of them tilted her head, her eyes glowing faintly. "Daughter of 2 worlds," she said softly. "We warned the old kings this day would come." I blinked, backing up a step. "Who the hell are you?" "We are the council," another said, her voice low and melodic. "And you, Rhiannon Hurt, are an impossibility. Half wolf, half witch, the bridge bloodline." Morella gasped. "That's not possible. It was never meant to be." The first witch interrupted, her cloth rippling like smoke. "But when 2 bloodlines crossed during the Blood War, the magic sealed itself away. Until you." The words hit like stones. "Bridge bloodline?" I repeated. "That sounds ominous." "It is," the witch said. "You are the lock and the key. Your blood binds the creatures of moon and magic, and if that bond is broken—" "Let me guess," I cut in, because my sarcasm works better than courage. "The world ends?" "Worse," the witch said. "It begins again." The lamps reignited with a whoosh. The witches began fading, their voices echoing in the sudden silence. "Beware, child of fire. If he marks you under the blood moon, the beacon will awaken and every creature who has ever hungered for power will come for you." And then they were gone. Mirella's hands trembled. They never appear unless fate is already in motion. I stared at the space where they'd been, at the faint mark glowing through my skin, at the fear rising in my throat. It had been 2 nights since the witch's visit. Drake, of course, was pretending everything was under control. Classic alpha behaviour: smolder first, panic never. But I could see it in the way his jaw tightened when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his hand brushed his chest sometimes, like he could feel our bond burning under his skin. And the worst part? So could I. Every time he came near me, the marks on my arms glowed faintly, like they were whispering, "Touch him." Every time he said my name in that low, gravelly way, heat pooled low in my stomach. I wasn't sure if it was magic or mating, but whatever it was making me crazy. I found him in the training yard that evening, shirtless, because of course he was, sparring with 2 other wolves. The sight of him sweat, strength, control hit me like a gut punch. He saw me, and everything about him shifted. The wolves backed off immediately. "Rhea," he said, wiping his jaw, "you shouldn't be out here." "Yeah, because being cooped up in a mansion full of people who look at me like I'm a ticking magical bomb is so much better." He sighed. "They'll come around." "I don't think they'll get the chance," I muttered, because apparently I might light up like a nuclear fairy and start calling dead things from the forest. A flicker of amusement crossed his eyes, but it vanished fast. He motioned for me to follow him to the edge of the clearing. "Mirella says the witch's warning has a deeper meaning. The bond between us, it's accelerating your awakening." I crossed my arms. "Meaning?" He hesitated, and that alone made my stomach twist. "Meaning the longer we stay close, the stronger the link becomes. If I mark you, mark me." He looked away, exhaling. "If I claim you fully as my mate, it will complete the bond, but it could also amplify your power beyond control." "Oh," I blinked. "So basically, sex and commitment could end civilization." His mouth twitched despite himself. "Something like that." I snorted. "Great, just when I thought my love life couldn't get any more dramatic." For a second, silence hung between us. Then he stepped closer, his presence all heat and danger. His gaze dropped to my mouth before flicking back up. "You joke, but this is serious, Rhea. The witches warned us for a reason." I tilted my head up, meeting his gaze. "And what reason is that, Drake? You think I can't handle it? Or you're just scared of what happens when you stop pretending you don't want me?" His eyes darkened instantly. I felt his restraint crack like glass between us. He took another step, close enough that I could feel his breath on my neck. "You think I haven't imagined it?" he murmured. "Every damn night I fight it. The pull, the bond, you. But marking you means putting a target on your back so bright the whole supernatural world will see it." His voice was rough, raw, not angry, but desperate. I swallowed hard. "Then maybe it's already too late," I whispered. The air between us sizzled. He stared at me for a long moment, unreadable, intense, then turned away suddenly, running a hand through his hair. "You drive me insane," he muttered. "Good," I said, forcing a smirk. "At least we're both suffering." He didn't look back when he said, "Get some rest, Rhea. Tomorrow, we figure out how to control your power." "Sure," I called after him. "And maybe find me a witch who can also fix whatever the hell this bond is doing to my hormones." He paused, just for a second. His shoulders shook, a quiet, amused huff escaping him before he walked away into the dark. And I just stood there, staring at the moonlight on my arms as the marks shimmered faintly, pulsing to a rhythm that matched the beat of his retreating footsteps. The bond wasn't just alive anymore. It was hungry. The night was too quiet. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. I sat on the balcony outside our room, watching the moon drag its silver light across the trees. My skin tingled, that same restless electric hum I'd felt every night since the witch's warning, like something inside me was shifting, impatient. I should have been tired. After everything, exhaustion should have hit me like a train. But my body didn't feel human anymore, not entirely. Every sense was alive. Every whisper, every gust of wind, every heartbeat in the mansion below pulsed through me, and underneath it all, one rhythm stood out, his. Drake. I didn't even need to see him. I could feel him pacing somewhere near the courtyard, energy sharp and coiled. We were connected, and that connection was slowly eating me alive. I leaned against the railing, muttering, "This is ridiculous. I'm not supposed to crave someone like oxygen." And that's when I heard it, the crack of a branch, faint but wrong. Not from the mansion, from outside the wards. I turned my head sharply, eyes narrowing into the darkness. The tingling on my skin spiked, like my magic was trying to warn me. Then, out of nowhere, a blur of movement. The night erupted. Wolves howled, alarms sounded, and flames shot into the air beyond the walls. The wards flickered red. Someone was breaking in. I bolted from the balcony and ran down the hall, nearly colliding with a half-shifted guard. "What's happening?" "Vampires!" he barked. "They're attacking from the east gate." My heart slammed. Vampires. The same ones who'd taken me. The same ones who knew what I was. I didn't think I ran. By the time I reached the courtyard, chaos had swallowed everything. Wolves fought in silver armor. Vampires moved like shadows, fast, vicious, silent. Drake's roar cut through the noise, deep and commanding. I found him in the middle of it all, his wolf half emerged, eyes blazing gold. "Rhea, stay back!" he shouted, ripping a vampire off one of his pack and throwing him across the field like he weighed nothing. But I couldn't stay back. I felt their magic pulling at me, familiar, dark, wanting. Something inside me screamed to fight. And then it happened. Power surged up from my chest like fire. My vision flickered white, and every pulse of energy in the air bent toward me, raw, chaotic, alive. Lightning danced over my hands, crawling up my arms like living veins. "Rhea!" Drake yelled again, but his voice sounded far away now. I didn't even know what I was doing. My body moved on its own magic, spilling out of me in wild, uncontrollable waves. Every time I tried to stop, it only grew stronger. Bolts of pure light ripped through the field, slamming into vampires. Some screamed, some turned to ash. I could feel the storm building inside me. Then suddenly, the energy twisted too fast, too strong, and a flash of heat shot straight through my body. Not pain, not power, something else. Desire. My knees buckled as images of Drake's hands, his mouth, his heat slammed into my head like a spell gone wrong. "Oh, hell no!" I gasped, shaking my head. "Not fucking now!" I stumbled backward, the chaos around me blurring. What the hell is wrong with me? Everyone's fighting for their lives and I'm... Another surge of heat pulsed through me, and I almost screamed. My marks glowed brighter than ever, their gold light blinding. Drake appeared out of nowhere, catching me before I hit the ground. His eyes locked onto mine, full alpha, glowing with power and fury. "Rhea, breathe," he ordered. "Focus on me." "I can't," I gasped, trembling. It's like it's using me." He touched my face, his thumb brushing over my jaw, and for a second, everything else vanished. The heat, the magic, the fear, all of it tunneled into that one connection. And then something inside me snapped. Light exploded from my chest, spreading through the battlefield. It hit every vampire at once, burning them to dust, clearing the air, silencing the screams. When it was over, I collapsed against Drake's chest, trembling. Smoke and ashes floated in the moonlight. He held me close, his voice low and hoarse. "It's okay. It's over." But I knew it wasn't. Because somewhere deep inside I could still feel it, that fire. That craving. And it wasn't just power anymore. It was him. Drake didn't waste a second. He swept me into his arms, ignoring the blood and smoke still hanging in the air, and carried me back into the mansion. His heartbeat thundered under my cheek, steady, furious, alive. He laid me gently on the couch in the living room, his hand still on the back of my head, as if he couldn't quite let go. "I'm fine," I murmured, forcing a smile even though my chest still felt like it was on fire. "I just need a moment for my heart to steady. You go check on the others. Some were badly hurt." For a second he hesitated, torn between his pack and me. Then he nodded once, brushing his thumb down my arm before turning toward the door. "Don't move," he ordered softly. And then he was gone. The silence he left behind felt too heavy. I was still trying to catch my breath when a sharp click of footsteps echoed behind me. The scent hit me before the voice, that sharp, bitter tang of envy wrapped in perfume. "Kara." She stepped out of the hallway shadows, hand pressed dramatically to her chest, a faint smear of blood at the corner of her mouth from the fight. How many people have to get hurt or die before you realize your presence is the problem? I exhaled, slow and tired, rolling my eyes. "You know, Kara, for someone who claims to hate me, you sure spend a lot of time breathing my air." Her face tightened. The gold in her eyes gleamed, dangerous. For a heartbeat, I thought she might actually shift right there in the living room. I pushed myself upright, resting my elbows on my knees. "Don't look at me like that. I'm not scared of you. I'm just too damn tired to deal with your middle school jealousy right now." Kara's jaw clenched so hard I heard her teeth grind. She turned to leave, shoulders rigid. "One question," I called after her. She paused, but didn't look back. "Why do you hate me that much? Is it because I'm a plus-size girl who doesn't fit your little fairy tale version of what belongs next to an alpha?" For a second, something flickered in her expression. Guilt, maybe, or recognition, but it vanished as fast as it came. She just turned and walked away without a word. I let out a long, tired sigh. That annoying daughter of a why am I even wasting my breath on her? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, but her words lingered. "Your presence is the problem." My fingers drifted to my arm. The veins beneath my skin had darkened faint black threads pulsing faintly like ink in water. "She's right, though. I keep bringing wars after wars to Drake and his pack," I whispered. The thought stung more than I wanted to admit. I pushed myself to my feet, glancing toward the stairs. "What I need," I muttered, "is a very strong liquor, a stupidly strong one, or a warm, long shower. Yeah, that'll do." The house creaked around me as I climbed the steps towards our shared room, the scent of smoke and rain still clinging to the air. I stripped off my battle-torn clothes and stepped under the shower's steaming spray, letting the water drum against my shoulders. For a long, good moment I just stood there, eyes closed, letting the sound drown out everything. When I finally opened them, a tall shadow stood outside the glass. I jumped, heart lurching. "Holy hell, Drake! You can't just stand there like some brooding ghost!" His mouth quirked. "Mind if I join you?" He was already stepping inside before I could answer. The steam curled around us, heat blending with the scent of rain and smoke on his skin. I didn't have time to say anything else before he reached for me, his hand finding the back of my neck, his lips crashing against mine in a kiss that burned hotter than the water. The world slipped away, the battle, the pain, the questions. For one heartbeat it was only us, the sound of water and breath and need colliding. And when his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, I stopped fighting it. The rest the night could keep. Morning light crept through the curtains, cutting across the floor in soft gold lines. For the first time in what felt like forever, the mansion was quiet. I stood by the window, wrapped in one of Drake's shirts, way too small, but okay, smelling like him. The shower and sex last night had made me feel amazing, but Kara's words kept echoing in my head. "Your presence is the problem." Maybe she wasn't entirely wrong. Everywhere I went, chaos followed. I'd been taken, hunted, and nearly killed, and the closer Drake got to me, the more it felt like the world wanted to tear us apart. The door creaked open behind me. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. His energy rolled through the room before he even spoke. "You're awake early again," Drake murmured, voice still rough from sleep. "Couldn't sleep." He crossed the room and stopped beside me. His hand brushed my waist lightly, not possessive this time, but grounding. "The others are healing. No casualties." A soft breath escaped me, relief, sharp and fleeting. "That's something." He studied me quietly, his eyes searching my face. "You're blaming yourself." "Shouldn't I?" I whispered. "Every time something happens, it's because of me. The attack, the vampires, the witches." "Rhea!" His voice snapped through the air, low and steady. "You didn't bring the war. You woke it up. There's a difference." I turned to face him, brow furrowed. "That's not exactly comforting. It's the truth." He stepped closer, so close I could feel the warmth rolling off him. "Your power doesn't attract danger. It reveals it, forces it into the open. The world's been hiding its rot for centuries, and you just exposed it." I blinked, speechless for a second. "You make it sound poetic. It still feels like hell." He smiled, faintly small, tired, real. "Welcome to being part of a pack." I stared at him, then shook my head. "You're infuriating." "And you're stubborn," he countered. "That's why we fit." Before I could respond, the faint clang of the bell echoed through the hall, the one that only rang when the elders I didn't know lived within this mansion until a few days ago called an emergency council. Drake's body went still. "They want us downstairs." "Us?" He nodded. "They're invoking the Luna's vow." I frowned. "The what now?" He didn't answer right away. His expression shifted, pride and unease tangled together. "It's an ancient rite. When an alpha's bond becomes permanent, the pack must acknowledge it in blood. It seals you to me, Rhea. Forever." My heart skipped. "You mean like marriage?" "In our world," he said quietly, "it's more binding than that." The room tilted. The weight of his words settled over me like smoke. "And you think the pack will agree?" His jaw flexed. "They will, or they'll leave." The silence between us thickened, pulsing with something unspoken. I wanted to tell him I wasn't ready, that the idea of being tied to someone for eternity terrified me, not because I didn't want him, but because I wasn't sure what I'd become next. But when he looked at me like that, steady and sure, the words wouldn't come. Instead, I said softly, "If I say yes, what happens then?" He reached up, brushing his thumb under my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Then the pack becomes your pack. My strength becomes yours, and anyone who comes for you dies knowing they challenged a Luna of Blood Moon." Something inside me trembled, not fear this time, but recognition. For the first time since the marks appeared, I didn't feel small. I nodded once. "Then let's go." The great hall was already filled when we arrived. Pack members lined the walls in their human forms, silent, respectful, watching. The fire pit in the center burned brighter than usual, fed by something thicker than wood. Morella stood near the front, her eyes finding mine immediately. "You're certain?" she asked. Drake's hand tightened around mine. "We are." Morella studied me for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "Then let the vow begin." Drake stepped forward, cutting his palm with a silver blade and letting his blood fall into the flame. It hissed, glowing crimson. "My turn." Morella held out the blade. "Blood to bind, will to stand." I hesitated only a second before slicing my palm. The sting was sharp, but when my blood hit the fire, it didn't hiss. It roared. The flames turned gold. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the symbols on my arms blazed to life, winding up to my shoulders like molten light. Drake's eyes locked on mine, his chest rising fast. "Rhea, I'm fine," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I was. The power surged up through me, burning, wrapping itself around our joined hands. The fire flared high, too high, swallowing the ceiling in light. When it finally died down, the room was silent. The sigils on my skin had turned silver. Drake's mark glowed faintly at the base of his throat, mirroring mine. Morella's voice broke the stillness. "It's done. The Blood Moon has a Luna." But even as the pack bowed their heads, a faint shiver ran through me like something far away had woken, sensing the bond. something that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. And in the corner of the room, Morella's eyes were no longer calm. They were filled with fear. The world didn't look the same after the ceremony. Everything was louder, sharper. The heartbeat of the forest, the whisper of leaves, the low, simmering hum of power threading under the earth. It wasn't magic anymore. It was me. After the vow, Drake had carried me back upstairs not because I was hurt, but because I could barely walk without feeling the floor pulse beneath my feet. It was like my veins had turned into rivers of fire. Now, I sat at the edge of our bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The silver marks on my arms had dimmed, but faint trails of light still crawled under my skin like living ink. Still glowing, I muttered to myself. Fantastic. Maybe I'll start picking up radio signals next. Not funny, came Drake's voice from the doorway. He leaned against the frame, shirt half-buttoned, hair damp from a shower. The look on his face, that quiet mixture of awe and fear, made my stomach twist. You should rest, he said. I'm not tired. He raised a brow. You're shaking. I looked down, my hands were trembling, though I hadn't noticed. That's new. He came closer, kneeling in front of me. His hand brushed my knee gently. Your body's adjusting. The bond wasn't just physical. It merged energy, your witch blood, my wolf blood. It's not a small thing. No kidding. I gave a dry laugh, rubbing my temple. My head feels like a storm. Drake's expression softened. Then we ride it out, together. He always said things like that steady, certain like the universe itself couldn't argue with him. But beneath the words, I could feel the same unease I felt in myself. Something had changed between us. Not bad, not good, just bigger. The bond pulsed faintly, a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. I swallowed. You feel it too, don't you? He hesitated. Every breath. I nodded slowly. Then tell me I'm not crazy, because I keep hearing things, voices, like whispers under the noise. That made him pause. Whispers? I frowned, trying to find the words. It's not like a voice I recognize, more like many voices, overlapping, chanting something I can't understand. Drake's eyes darkened. When did it start? After the fire went out downstairs. I looked back at my reflection. I thought it was just adrenaline, but now it's louder, especially when I'm alone. He stood, turning toward the window. His wolf senses stretched outward. I could feel them through the bond. Morella said your power might connect to old blood. Maybe these voices are part of that connection. So I'm a magical radio tower for dead witches. Something like that, he said, only half joking. Before I could respond, a crash echoed from outside, a deep resonant sound that shook the glass. I jumped to my feet, heart racing. Drake was already moving, his energy snapping to full alpha mode. Stay here. Yeah, like that's worked out great in the past, I muttered, following anyway. We reached the balcony overlooking the main courtyard. Below, the air shimmered like heat waves over asphalt and then twisted into shape. A red scroll floated in midair, sealed with wax shaped like fangs. Every wolf below froze. Morella was the first to move, appearing out of shadow, eyes wide with recognition. She didn't touch the scroll, just looked up at Drake and me, her voice trembling. It's from him. Drake's jaw tightened. The Vampire King. I thought we killed him, I muttered. As if responding, the scroll burst open mid-air, unfurling with a hiss. Words formed in dark crimson, curling across the parchment. To the Blood Moon Alpha and his newly crowned Luna. Congratulations on your union. The joining of blood and power is beautiful to witness from afar. You have awakened something ancient, Luna of Fire, and I am eager to meet what the world calls impossible. You are invited to my court under the full moon as an honored guest. Come willingly, or I will come for you myself. VK. When the last word burned away, the scroll dissolved into ashes that rained down like blood. No one spoke. Morella turned to Drake slowly. If he knows her bloodline has awakened. Drake's fists clenched. Then he'll come whether we answer or not. I stared at the ashes, my pulse hammering in my ears. So this is it, I whispered. The war everyone's been waiting for. Drake looked at me, and this time, the alpha in him wasn't calm. He was fury barely restrained. No, he said, it's not a war. It's a hunt. And the way his eyes burned gold made me realize he wasn't the one being hunted. He was the one hunting back.
It had been 5 nights since the Crimson Scroll appeared. 5 nights of no sleep. 5 nights of waiting for something I couldn't see, but could feel breathing down our walls. The Blood Moon estate pulsed with energy. Guards rotated every 2 hours. Scouts circled the perimeter. Witches layered ward after ward. Still, it wasn't enough. Because I could feel him, the Vampire King. Every night, like a whisper in the dark. Watching. Waiting. And her. Rhiannon. My Luna. Even when she slept, the marks on her skin glowed faintly, living, pulsing, moving. I'd trace them with my fingertips, trying to memorize every line, every breath, every sound she made. Because I knew if the king wanted her, he'd come through hell itself to take her. And I'd burn the world down to stop him. Morella stood across from me in the war room, maps scattered between us. You can't keep her locked away forever, Alpha. I didn't look up. Watch me. She's the Luna. The power in her blood has already tied itself to the land. If she hides, the bond weakens. My jaw flexed. Then I'll strengthen it myself. Morella sighed. You can't cage what was born from chaos. I can, if chaos wears my mark. The witch gave me that ageless, knowing look she was famous for. You sound like your father. I met her eyes, then cold, steady. My father died, protecting what he loved. I'll do the same. She didn't argue after that. She just pressed her palms to the map and whispered a spell, making the edges shimmer with blue fire. If the vampires cross our borders, the wards will sing. Good, I said, turning away. Let them sing. When I went upstairs, she was by the window again. Rhea. Moonlight caught her hair, making it shimmer like fire beneath snow. She looked calm, but I could feel the restlessness rolling off her. The bond pulsed with it. You're watching me again, she said without turning. I leaned on the doorframe. Always. She half smiled. Creepy. Protective. She looked back over her shoulder then, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Same thing with you. I walked closer, stopping behind her. The king's been quiet too long. Maybe he's writing another dramatic letter, she muttered. He seems like the type. I almost smiled, but my instincts didn't let me. I could feel something off, like the air itself had shifted. I placed my hand on her shoulder, grounding myself. Rhea. If anything ever happens... She turned, cutting me off. Don't do that goodbye speech. I frowned. I'm not. You are, she said, softer now. You get that storm look, like you're already halfway gone. I wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that no storm could take me without her in it, but before I could speak, the lights in the room flickered. Every single one went out. The air dropped 10 degrees. My wolf snarled inside me. Drake? Her voice was a whisper. I didn't answer. My eyes had already gone gold. I reached out with my senses stretching through the wards, through the walls, through the dark. Nothing. Silence. Too silent. Then a crack. A sound like shattering glass echoed from below. I moved instantly, shoving her behind me. "Stay here." She caught my arm. "Drake?" "Now, Rhea." She didn't listen, of course. She never did. But I didn't wait to argue. I shifted mid-stride, bones snapping, fur ripping through skin. The ground quaked as I hit the stairs in my wolf form, claws cutting through the marble. The scent hit me before I reached the hall, blood and cold, and death. Vampires. The guards outside were down, not dead, but frozen, caught in a sleep spell. Their bodies lay still under silver light. I roared, and the walls themselves seemed to shake. From the corner of my vision, I caught a blur, tall, cloaked in black. Mist. "Show yourself!" I growled through the bond, voice vibrating the air. A whisper brushed past my ear. "You're too late, Alpha." And then I felt it. The bond snapped tight, then loose. Rhea. I turned toward the stairs just in time to see her lifted, thrashing in the arms of a vampire twice my size. Another shadow figure hovered behind him, whispering spells. She screamed my name raw, terrified, furious, and I charged. But before I could reach them, the air twisted, and they vanished into black smoke. The last thing I saw was her hand reaching out toward me before she was gone. The silence that followed was worse than any roar. I shifted back, bare feet on cold stone, chest heaving. "Rhea?" The house was still. Too still. Every sound, every breath, gone. Even the bond, the steady glowing thread between us, was thinning, fading like smoke. No. I clenched my fists until blood ran down my palms. "No!" The word ripped through the air like thunder, shaking the chandeliers, cracking the floor. Morella appeared out of nowhere, eyes wide. "Drake!" "They took her." "How?" Silent spell, vampiric. My breathing was uneven. Only one could have cast it. Her expression fell. "Micah. The Vampire King." I nodded once. "He's gifted with shadow magic. He's been planning this for days." "Drake, if you go now." "I'm not waiting." She stepped forward. "You'll walk into a trap. Then I'll drag him out of it." And without another word, I turned and shifted again, fur black as the night, eyes glowing gold. The house came alive again the second the spell broke. Guards gasping awake, alarms ringing through the estate, but I was already gone. Running. Through the forest, through the scent of her fading presence. Through fury, so strong it burned. He took my mate. The Vampire King wanted a war. He just got one. Branches tore at me. Roots split under my paws. Every breath I took filled me with rage and fear and need. Then I saw it, the shimmer of a spell. A glowing ring of blood etched into the dirt ahead. Trap. Morella's warning echoed in my head. "You'll fall into his traps." I didn't slow down. The moment my paw crossed the boundary, the ground lit up, crimson runes spiraling outward, energy ripping through the air. The forest went silent. Then the world exploded. Pain shot through me, every nerve burning. I tried to shift back, but the magic held me halfway, wolf and man, stuck between. Chains of shadow shot out from the trees, wrapping around my limbs, dragging me down. And through the smoke he stepped out. Micah. Tall, elegant, dressed in black that shimmered like oil. His eyes gleamed silver, lips curved in a smile that made my stomach turn. "Well," he drawled, his voice like velvet dipped in poison. "The great Alpha Drake. I was starting to think you'd never show." I growled, fighting against the silver chains, muscles bulging under my skin. Where? Is she? He tilted his head. Impatient, aren't we? Don't worry, Alpha. Your precious mate is safe. For now. I lunged, the shadows yanking me back hard. He laughed softly, like a man humoring a child. You came running the moment she screamed. You knew it was a trap, and you still came. His smile deepened. Love. Such a fascinating weakness. Say another word, I snarled, and I'll rip your tongue out when I break free. He stepped closer until I could smell his cold, rotten scent. Then you better hurry, Drake, because your Luna, she's starting to wake. He vanished in a wisp of smoke. And before the last word faded, a scream echoed through the forest, distant, raw, and familiar. Rhea. I tore against the chains again, muscles screaming, shadows tightening. I didn't care. I'd break every bone in my body before I let him keep her. And somewhere, in the heart of the dark, I swore I could hear her heartbeat.
The world came back in pieces. First sound, a slow drip of water echoing somewhere above. Then smell, cold iron, blood, and the faint scent of roses, rotting sweet. Then came the pain. I sucked in a breath and choked. My lungs burned, my wrists ached, bound above my head with chains that pulsed faint red under the torchlight. What the hell? The last thing I remembered was a blur of running, the forest turning into smoke and then fangs. Now I was in a cavern carved out of black stone. The air hummed like it was alive. Dozens of candles floated in the air without melting. The shadows moved even when the light didn't. Very good. You're awake. That voice. Smooth, deliberate, like he was tasting every syllable. I looked up. The vampire stood at the edge of the light, his eyes silver and too calm for a monster. His dark hair fell to his collar, slick as ink. His skin looked too perfect, like porcelain, hiding something rotten underneath. He smiled when he saw my glare. Ah, there she is, the bridge between night and moonlight. I pulled against the chains, gritting my teeth. You have a lot of nerve dragging me here. Let me go before my mate. Your mate is already here, he interrupted softly. He just doesn't know it yet. My blood turned to ice. What did you do to him? He circled me like a predator studying prey. Nothing fatal. I simply wanted a conversation with you alone, without your wolf growling in my ear. He stopped behind me, close enough that I could feel the unnatural chill rolling off his body. Do you know what you are, Rhiannon? I glared straight ahead. A pissed-off woman about to break your nose. He chuckled, genuinely amused. Fiery. I like that. But no, not that. You are the bloodline I've waited centuries for. The bridge bloodline. Half wolf, half witch, born under a shattered moon. I scoffed, but his words stirred something sharp in my gut. You talk like you read it out of a bad prophecy book. Not a book, he said, coming to stand in front of me. A blood vow. He raised his hand and the air shimmered. Between his fingers appeared an ancient seal, glowing faintly crimson. I felt it deep in my veins, like the same mark carved into my skin was humming an answer. The same symbol that had appeared on my body when Drake touched me days ago. I froze. What? Is that? The vampire's eyes glinted. Your birthright. A bond between my kind and yours, sealed long before your wolf gods decided to play with purity and hierarchy. You, my dear, carry the blood that can end the old war or reignite it. He leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. Join me, Rhiannon. Be what you were meant to be. Not a wolf chained by love and pack, but a queen born of two worlds. I spat at his feet. I'd rather die. He smiled like he'd been waiting for that answer. You will if you refuse me long enough. He moved faster than I could blink. One moment, he was a few feet away, the next, he was right in front of me. His fingers caught my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes, cold and hungry. "Tell me something," he murmured. "When he marked you, did you feel it? That spark that burned your veins? That wasn't love, Rhiannon. That was your power waking the same power your ancestors buried to keep me locked away." "Get your hands off me," I hissed, jerking my head away. He chuckled softly, and for a second the mask slipped. I saw the monster behind the charm fangs glinting, hunger twisting his features. "Love makes you weak," he said, voice low and dark, "but blood makes you eternal." Before I could react, he sank his fangs into my shoulder. White-hot pain exploded through me, not just physical, but something deeper, older. My veins lit up, glowing faintly red under my skin. "Stop!" I gasped, but the chains held. My heartbeat pounded in my ears like drums of war. He pulled back, blood glistening on his lips. "There it is," he whispered, "the fire I've been searching for." I screamed, the sound echoing through the cavern, but somewhere beneath the agony, I felt something else. A pull. A bond snapping taut through my chest. Drake. He was coming. Micah smiled faintly, tilting his head. "Ah, he felt that, didn't he?" I glared through the haze of pain, trembling but unbroken. "He'll kill you." His smile widened. "I'm counting on it." The pain didn't stop. It wasn't just a vampire bite. It was a wildfire under my skin, spreading fast, eating through every vein, every nerve, every inch of who I was. I collapsed against the chains, panting. The metal burned cold, the floor blurred beneath me. My heartbeat wasn't steady anymore. It was thunder, wild and broken. The vampire stood back, watching me shake. His silver eyes glowed like moons reflected on blood. "Do you feel it now? The in-between?" I laughed, hoarse, sharp, half mad. "I feel like I want to punch you in the face, if that counts." He tilted his head, almost fond. Still defiant. "You remind me of her." "Who?" I managed. He smiled faintly. "The first of your kind. The ether witch who bridged the curse and the moon. My beloved, my undoing." I spat blood at his feet. "Cool story. Still not joining your undead fan club?" He sighed like a disappointed teacher. "You will, little flame. Your power already answers mine." And it did. That was the terrifying part. The marks on my arms pulsed again, bright enough to light the room. The bite on my shoulder glowed to match. The air around me shifted, the same way it had that night in the battle when I'd lost control. I could feel everything. The heartbeat of the earth under the stone, the air vibrating with magic, even the faint echo of Drake's fury through the bond. Micah's smile sharpened. "He's close, isn't he? Closer than you think. Good. Let him come. When he dies, the bond will break, and all that wild power will be mine." Something inside me snapped. "You talk too much." Before I knew what I was doing, I pulled not on the chains but on the energy crawling beneath my skin. The air screamed. The marks on my body flared gold, and the chains cracked with a sound like lightning splitting the sky. The vampire stumbled back, eyes wide. "Impossible." "Surprise!" I hissed. "Guess I'm not the obedient type." I dropped to my knees, dizzy but alive, sparks crawling across my fingertips. The sigils that had once been black now burned with gold fire. I pressed my hand to the floor, and the stone itself responded, lines of light racing outward in every direction. The vampire recovered fast. He blurred, appearing behind me, cold hands grabbing my throat. "You think raw power will save you?" I gasped, choking, but then the glow from my mark surged again. I didn't even need to think. The energy burst out of me in a wave, flinging him across the cavern like a storm wind. The walls shook. Cracks spidered up to the ceiling. I could barely stay upright, my vision flickering between light and shadow. My breath came in shallow gasps. And then I heard it, the growl. Deep, animal, familiar. Drake. The vampire hissed, rising to his feet, wiping blood from his mouth. "Too soon," he muttered. "He wasn't supposed to—" The doors exploded. Drake stormed through the dust and smoke, his eyes glowing molten gold, his entire body radiating fury and pain. His wolf aura filled the cavern like a physical thing, ripping through Vampire's magic like it was paper. "Step away from her," he growled, voice rough and low enough to shake the air. The vampire smiled faintly, taunting. "Ah, the alpha arrives. A moment too late." Drake's gaze landed on me, and for a heartbeat, I saw everything in his eyes: terror, rage, relief, love. I wanted to speak, to tell him I was okay, but my voice failed. My legs gave out and he was there, catching me before I hit the ground. His arms were the first warm thing I'd felt in hours. "Rhea." His voice cracked. "You're bleeding." I managed a broken laugh. "I've had worse mornings." He pressed his forehead against mine, trembling. "You scared the hell out of me." "Yeah, well," I whispered. "Welcome to my life." But then the vampire's laugh echoed again, low and cruel. "Touching. Truly. Let's see how long your bond saves you." Drake's snarl filled the cavern. He set me gently aside, eyes burning brighter. His wolf was seconds from breaking loose. And even through the pain, I could feel it, that same wild current linking us. The mark on my arm and the one on his chest pulsed in unison. For the first time, I didn't try to stop it. I let it happen. The world flared gold. The bond between us roared alive, burning through every wall, every barrier, every shadow that dared to come between us. The vampire's smirk faded. He took one step back. "Oh, that's not possible." Drake's voice was rough steel. "You hurt what's mine. Now I'll end you for good now." The air didn't feel like air anymore. It was alive. It crackled hot, sharp, burning the back of my throat as the two of them stared each other down. Drake's aura filled the room, thick and electric, making the very ground tremble beneath us. The vampire's power pressed against it cold, heavy, ancient. Light and shadow clashed, swirling like storms colliding. And me? I was in the middle, the center of the explosion. The marks on my arms blazed brighter with every heartbeat, pulling, tugging, responding to both of them. "Drake," I managed, my voice shaking. "Don't." Too late. He lunged. 1 second he was a man, the next, a wolf. Massive black fur bristling, eyes burning gold. He slammed into the vampire with enough force to shatter the stone beneath them. The vampire hissed, fangs flashing, catching Drake's shoulder with his claws. The sound bone and flesh tearing made my stomach twist. Drake didn't even flinch. He threw the vampire across the cavern, crashing him into one of the pillars. Dust fell from the ceiling. The chains around me snapped the rest of the way, releasing me, but my knees nearly gave out. Power still crawled under my skin like live fire. The vampire was already back on his feet, smiling, his eyes now glowing pure silver. "You think brute strength wins wars, Alpha. You're fighting something eternal." Drake's growl was low, deadly. "You're fighting something mine." The vampire blurred, disappearing and reappearing behind him. Claws slashed, blood flew. Drake turned, too fast to follow, biting down on the vampire's arm, ripping through flesh and bone. Ah, the smell of iron filled the air. I stumbled forward before I even realized it. My body moved, pulled by something invisible, like a string connecting my chest to his. My vision pulsed between gold and red. Every strike they traded, I felt it in my bones, in my blood, in the rhythm of the marks lighting my skin. "Stop!" I gasped, pressing my hands against the ground. "Stop, both of you!" But they didn't hear me, or maybe they couldn't. Because in that moment, the bond between us wasn't just alive, it was feeding. Every roar, every hit, every drop of blood made the glow brighter until the whole chamber looked like the sun had fallen inside it. Then it happened, that feeling again. That heat. It wasn't pain anymore, it wasn't fear. It was hunger, wild, deep, primal, and it had Drake's name all over it. My breath hitched, body trembling. It wasn't the right time, hell. It was the worst possible time, but the scent of his blood and his power, the sound of his growl, it all tangled with that heat crawling through me. Shit, I whispered, clutching my chest. Why always at this bad time? The world tilted. The bond flared. I saw flashes his eyes, the way he'd looked at me that morning, the taste of his mouth in the shower, the feel of his bare skin against mine, the growl of his tone when moans my name, and it all slammed into me at once. The vampire's laugh cut through the haze. Ah, there it is. The blood's calling both sides. She burns for you, Wolf. She always will. Shut up, I hissed, forcing my hand up. The power rushed to meet me. The fire that burst from my palm wasn't gold this time, it was white. Pure, blinding. It struck the vampire square in the chest, sending him flying back into the far wall. Stone cracked, smoke rose, and the sound he made wasn't a human. Drake turned to me, half-shifted, his wolf eyes wide. Rhea. I could barely breathe. I didn't mean to. He moved fast, catching me before I collapsed again. My head hit his chest and I could hear his heartbeat rough, hard, steady. Behind him the vampire stirred, his voice raw. You can't kill what's bound to you by blood, little flame. You carry me now. You carry us both. Drake's snarl ripped through the cavern, echoing until it didn't sound like one voice but 1,000. He was ready to end it. But I grabbed his wrist. No, not yet. He froze, eyes snapping to mine. Rhea, I need him alive. My throat ached. If what he said is true, then killing him might kill me too. For a moment, silence. Only the sound of Drake's breathing. More. Then, slow and furious, he said, We'll find another way. I nodded weakly, though my skin still burned, the fire inside refusing to fade. Drake pulled me into his arms, lifting me as if I weighed nothing. The vampire's laughter followed us out, quiet, haunting. You'll come back to me, little flame, he whispered. I didn't answer. But deep down, something in me whispered back, not in words, but in heat. And that scared me. By the time Drake carried me through the threshold of the pack house, dawn was bleeding into the horizon. The sky looked bruised pink, grey and tired, like me. I felt his heartbeat against my shoulder, steady but too fast, like he was holding the entire world inside his chest and afraid to let it break. I should have told him to put me down, but for a while, I didn't want to. Everything hurt not from the battle, but from the bond. It burned under my skin like wildfire searching for air. Morella was already waiting at the door. Her face said everything before she even opened her mouth. Put her down, Alpha, she said quietly, and closed the door. I can feel it from here. Drake hesitated, then lowered me onto the couch, his hand never leaving mine. His eyes searched my face like he was afraid I'd fade away if he blinked. Morella moved closer, her bare feet silent against the floor. She hovered her palm above my arm and instantly pulled back, hissing. Blood magic, she muttered. Ancient. It's crawling through her veins. Drake's jaw clenched. Micah did something to her. Morella shook her head. No, you both did. I frowned, weakly. What do you mean, both? She crouched beside me, her gaze sharp and sad all at once. When you tried to stop the fight, your power connected with both of them. Drake's wolf, Micah's mark, they both answered you. The bond twisted into something else entirely. Drake's hand tightened around mine. Fix it. Morella looked at him for a moment. If I touch it wrong, she dies. If you kill the vampire, she dies faster. The room fell into silence. The kind that carries the weight of an entire war. Drake's eyes went dark, his voice a low growl. Then what do we do? Morella's gaze softened just a fraction as she looked at me again. Keep her calm. Keep her centered. The magic is feeding off her emotions, fear, guilt, anger, even love. Anything too strong and it'll consume her from the inside out. Great, I muttered, pressing my palm over my chest. So, basically, no feelings. Perfect. Easy. Morella gave a dry snort. If only it were that simple. She stood, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. "You'll need the moon water again. I'll prepare it. And Rhea." I looked up. "Don't fight what's inside you. The more you deny it, the more it'll burn." When she left, the silence crept back in. Drake was still kneeling in front of me, his thumb tracing slow circles over my hand. His touch was careful, almost reverent. "You scared the hell out of me," he said finally. I smiled faintly. "Join the club." He didn't smile back. "If he ever comes near you again—" "Drake," I cut in softly, "if you kill him, you'll kill me. We can't risk that. Not yet." He exhaled through his nose, frustration sharp enough to taste. "Then I'll find another way. I'll tear the world apart if I have to." I reached up and touched his cheek, the roughness of his jaw grounding me. Or we could start by not tearing anything apart for one night. That finally made him huff out a small laugh, tired but real. "You never stop telling me what to do you? Someone has to keep you from burning down the world." He leaned in close, forehead resting against mine. The warmth of him seeped into me, steadying the chaos just enough for the pain to ease. "I'll stay with you tonight," he whispered. "No arguments." "Not planning to argue," I murmured. "Just stay." He shifted beside me on the couch, his arm coming around my waist, drawing me into his chest. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like whispers we couldn't quite hear. Inside, my heartbeat found its rhythm again, slower, steadier, sinking to his. But even in that fragile peace, Micah's words lingered like smoke. "You carry us both." I wanted to believe he was wrong. I needed to believe it. But deep down, where the fire still curled beneath my ribs, I knew something inside me had changed. And it wasn't going back.
Sleep never came. Rhea had finally drifted off against my chest, her breathing slow, soft, the kind of sound that could calm storms if I let it. But I couldn't close my eyes. Not when I could still feel the pulse of her power under my skin, tangled with mine like wildfire refusing to die out. It was wrong. Too alive. Like every time her heart beat, it whispered my name. And something else's. Micah. The thought made my wolf snarl low in my chest. I eased myself off the couch carefully so I wouldn't wake her, then headed out into the cold night air. The moon sat low, pale and heavy, watching everything like it already knew the ending. Morella was waiting outside. She always knew when I'd come. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked, my voice rough. Her eyes flicked toward the house. "You're not the one I'm worried about sleeping." I folded my arms. "You said the magic connected us. What did you mean by both of us? Don't give me riddles this time." Morella's expression was unreadable for a moment. Then she sighed and walked closer, her voice lowering. "Rhea's power. It's not of wolf origin. It's something older celestial almost. When you marked her, it didn't just bind your souls. It ignited hers. The vampire's magic, Micah's, was drawn to that fire like a moth. When he touched her, when he fed, a piece of his essence fused to hers." My stomach turned cold. "You're saying she's bound to you both," she finished quietly. "A living tether, between light and dark?" For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. My wolf went still, no growl, no rage, just the kind of silence that means danger. I turned my head toward the forest, jaw tight. "So if one of us dies—" "She dies too," Morella said softly. "And if she loses control of that energy, she could destroy this entire pack by accident." I stared at her, letting the weight of it sink in. I'd spent years learning how to protect my people, how to keep them safe from wars, rogues, vampires, even myself. But now the greatest threat to them might be the woman I'd just promised to never leave. She doesn't need to know all of it yet, Morella continued carefully. The bond is still stabilizing. If she panics, it'll spiral. I ran a hand through my hair and exhaled. She's going to feel it anyway. She already does. Then give her something stronger to hold on to, Morella said, her tone cutting through the cold. You love her? Prove it by grounding her. Keep her tethered to you. Until the fire settles, you're her anchor. Her words hit deeper than I wanted to admit. Because even now, under the night sky, I could still feel her in my chest, the faint echo of her pulse humming in sync with mine. Her scent still clung to my skin, wild and sweet and alive. I turned back toward the house, my decision made. I'll keep her safe, I said quietly, even from herself. Morella's gaze softened as she watched me go. Then may the moon guard you both, Alpha Evers. You're walking a path no wolf ever has. When I walked back inside, the house was silent again. Rhea was still asleep on the couch, her arm stretched where I'd been. The moonlight slid through the window, silvering her skin, catching on the faint traces of black veins under her wrist like shadows that refused to leave. I crouched beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She sighed, leaning into the touch. And for just a moment, the darkness inside me eased. No vampire, no prophecy, no curse. Just her. But somewhere deep inside, my wolf stirred, uneasy. Because the fire in her wasn't just power anymore, it was alive. And if Morella was right, it might already be learning how to burn back. The morning came with a stillness that didn't feel right. The air outside carried no scent of the usual no wolves training, no voices, not even the faint chatter of the kitchen. Just a silence that pressed too close, like the forest itself was holding its own breath. I stood on the balcony of our room, shirtless, watching the fog stretch between the pines. The bond thrummed under my skin again. Rhiannon's heartbeat, faint but wild, echoing through me. Something was wrong. I turned, eyes landing on her sleeping form tangled in sheets. Her skin shimmered faintly under the light, and for a second, it almost looked like veins of silver threaded through her arms. My chest tightened. The power Morella had warned about wasn't settling. It was growing. And with every passing hour, I could feel it pulling something out of me too. When she stirred, I went still. Her eyes fluttered open hazel, warm, and yet not entirely hers. For a heartbeat, the gold bled crimson. Rhea? I said carefully. She blinked again, sitting up, and the color vanished. What's wrong? Everything. But I forced a smile. You were twitching in your sleep. She laughed softly, rubbing her eyes. Maybe I was dreaming of kicking Kara's ass again. Despite myself, I smirked. You almost killed her last time. Almost doesn't count, she muttered, and for a brief, perfect second, it felt normal. Then the mark on her collarbone pulsed. She hissed, clutching it, and I was already beside her before she fell forward. The air thickened, charged like static before a lightning strike. Her eyes flared gold again, her power surging beneath her skin. Rhea! I gripped her shoulders. Breathe! I can't. Drake? It burns. Light burst from her chest, sending me stumbling back. The air shimmered, crackling with energy as symbols ancient glowing appeared in the air around her. Witch sigils. My blood went cold. Stop fighting it, I shouted over the wind that suddenly swept through the room. You'll tear yourself apart. She screamed, and the sound wasn't human. It was power made flesh. glass shattered. The ground trembled. Then, just as fast, it ended, leaving her trembling on the bed, gasping. I rushed forward, catching her as she fell. Her head hit my chest, breath ragged, body limp. When her eyes lifted again, they weren't gold this time. They glowed faint crimson. And then she whispered a name that froze the blood in my veins. Micah. I went still. Her body relaxed, falling into unconsciousness, but the damage was already done. The scent of vampire magic clung to the air, like smoke, faint, distant, but unmistakable. He'd touched her mind. I lowered her onto the bed and stood, rage flooding through me, until the wolf inside pressed hard against my skin, begging to be let out. That bastard had found a way in. Even here. Even after all I'd done to protect her. My claws tore through my palms. You want to play games, Micah? I growled under my breath. Then I'll end the board. I turned toward the door, storm in my veins. Morella's warnings echoed somewhere far behind me, but I was past listening. The pack would be ready. I'd make sure of it. If Micah wanted Rhea's power, he'd have to walk through me first. And I'd tear his fucking heart out before he ever touched her again.
I woke up with my mouth full of sand and my head full of echoes. For a second, nothing made sense, just the aftertaste of iron and the memory of cold stone against my cheek. Then the whisper slid into my skull like a silk blade. Rhiannon. It was a voice I knew better than I wanted to, smooth, patient, full of old things. Not the frantic snarl of a wolf, not the clipped bark of a witch. It had the slow, honeyed cruelty of someone who had all the time in the world. I slapped a hand over my mouth because I was laughing and crying at once. Nope, I told the empty room out loud, because saying it made me feel like I was doing something, even if it was stupid. Not today, Micah, not ever. The voice didn't care about my protests. It walked along the edges of my mind, picking at memories like someone tracing scars. You felt the power, didn't you? The heat when he touched you, the light when you spoke its name. It offered things like a merchant in a market, knowledge, control, the sweet, terrible promise of not being afraid anymore. I rolled onto my side, fingers digging into the sheets until I tasted cotton. My arms ached where the old black veins had been, where the silver sigils still breathed faintly under skin. The bite on my shoulder burned like a brand, even though it had been days. Somewhere inside that burn, something else throbbed, Micah's touch, a sliver of shadow wrapped around my marrow. "Shut up," I muttered. "You're not real." My voice sounded small. The whisper hummed back, amused. "I am more real than your pack's loyalty. I was there at your first breath. I can give you control. We can teach the old spells that the witches buried. You could be queen of both worlds, and then softer. And he won't be able to tell you no." Heat twisted low in my belly so fast, I made a sound that was half a gasp, half a laugh. I shoved my head into the pillow, because the thought of Drake telling me no felt like a slap and a halo all at once. It wasn't just seduction. The voice knew the ache in my bones. It stayed on the parts of me that had always been raw, not belonging, not being enough. It promised to fix the jagged edges with something fierce and terrible. It promised power, made neat and useful and obedient. I told myself I was stronger than whispers. But when the voice fed me a memory, his hand at my throat, the quiet look he gave me the night before, the way the world had gone gold the first time we touched, I felt the pull. Not for him. Not only for him, but for the idea that I might not have to be afraid of what I could do. The bedroom door opened. Drake's shadow fell over me before his voice cut into the air. "Rhea." The whisper recoiled like something burned. "You are mine," it hissed to my mind, not loud, but intent enough that my teeth ached. Drake was at the bed in 2 long strides, and he knelt beside me without asking. His palm found my wrist, warm, exactly where my pulse was thudding like a trapped animal. The bond hummed between us, a taut cable that sent his steadiness straight into my chest. "You heard him," he said without accusation, just a flat observation. It made my gut twist, because in that small, precise tone, I could hear the thing he never let anyone see. Fear. "He's noisy," I said, and tried to make a joke out of it. It crashed. He didn't smile. "Don't answer him," Drake warned. The words were bare. "Don't listen. God, don't let him make you think you're broken." His fingers flexed around my hand like iron. I tried to look brave. "Maybe I am broken," I said, the sentence tasting like defeat. "Maybe I'm a walking apocalypse and I should just—" I broke off because the rest of the thought, die, leave, run, sounded like surrender. He silenced me by pressing his forehead to mine. Up close, I could see it in the slant of his mouth. He was steadying himself on me the same way I leaned on him. "You're not alone," he said. That was almost a vow. "We'll fix it, together. No bargains with monsters." Micah's voice slid back in under that thinner now. "He fears the right thing, but fear is a chain. I offer you keys." Something in me snapped like tinder. I yanked my hand free and pushed myself upright, ridiculous stubbornness flaring. "No keys," I said. "No bargains. Not ever." "Good," Drake breathed. Relief, raw and grateful, flooded his features. He tightened his hold on my hand like he could anchor me. The whisper retreated then, like smoke skittering under a door. I could still feel its residue, an itch under my skin, and the bite in my shoulder pulsed as if remembering what had been taken from it. But for the first time since the cavern, I felt like I wasn't split in 2. Not entirely. "You heard him," Drake said again quietly, almost to himself. "I know." "Yeah," I said. I half laughed, because what else do you do when your life has become a series of impossible choices? He sounds insistent. "You're stubborn enough to defy a vampire king," he said, and there was something like a smile in his voice now. Dangerous, tender, an arrangement of contradictions that made my insides clench. We sat like that for a long time, 2 people with a war at their backs and a whisper in their heads. Outside, the pack murmured to life. Inside, the fire in my blood pulsed slow, like something that might be taught to breathe. Micah would come back. He always did. The whisper would keep trying. But for now, with Drake's hand wrapped around mine and his steady heartbeat syncing with my own, the voice felt smaller. Not gone, not beaten, but held at bay. "Promise me," he said suddenly, every ounce of alpha in that single demand, "no bargains. Whatever he shows you, tell me first." "I promise," I said. The word made me feel like a traitor and an oath-breaker both, but the heat that followed it wasn't hunger. It was relief. The whisper didn't like promises, it never does, but it had to wait for now, and so did I. The night split open with screams. The first wave of vampires came fast, a blur of red eyes and claws cutting through the mist. Blood moon warriors met them head-on, fangs flashing, bodies colliding in chaos. The ground shook with the force of the clash. Drake's roar echoed through the clearing, commanding the pack to hold formation, but the line was already breaking. There were too many of them, hundreds of vampires, their eyes like pits of silver flame. "Rhea, stay behind me!" he shouted, shifting mid-stride, his massive black wolf slamming into an enemy with bone-crushing force. But I couldn't, not this time. Something was calling me. Something ancient, humming beneath my skin. A vampire lunged for me. I twisted, barely ducking under his blade. My body moved on instinct, but my heartbeat wasn't fear anymore. It was rhythm. It was power. The mark on my collarbone began to burn. The world blurred the screams, the claws, the clash of metal until all I could hear was a whisper in the firelight. "Daughter of the flame, awaken." I froze. The flames nearby, real flames, licking from a shattered tree, turned gold. Not orange, not red. Gold. And then I saw her. A figure stepped from within the fire, tall, radiant, her face half hidden by a crown of embers. Her eyes were endless. The Witch Queen. No one else saw her. The battle still raged around me, but she stood untouched by the chaos. "Who are you?" I breathed, my voice trembling. Her voice came like wind through fire, the first flame, the mother of all witches, and you, child of both wolf and witch, are my last heir. The world shuddered. My pulse surged. The pain in my mark grew unbearable, but beneath it, something unlocked. "Call the flame," she said. "Let it answer you. Do not fear the burn." The gold light burst from my chest, roaring outward, spiraling through the dark like a living storm. Wolves fell back in shock as the fire bent around them, sparing them, but everything else in its path screamed. Vampires ignited where they stood, their bodies disintegrating into ash. Everyone stopped. "You've awakened the bloodline that once burned gods," the Queen whispered. She raised her hand, and the fire around me answered. The battlefield trembled. My body moved like it remembered something I didn't. Old sigils forming from the flames, ancient runes curling around my arms. The wolves stopped fighting, frozen in awe. The vampires screamed as my power tore through them, burning the shadows themselves to ash. Drake was shouting my name somewhere beyond the fire, but I couldn't hear him anymore. The Queen's voice filled everything. "Burn them, daughter of flame. Burn until the world remembers who you are." The ground split open. Fire rushed outward like a storm. Every vampire caught within it turned to dust, their screams vanishing into the wind. When it was done, the forest was silent. The flames around me softened, curling inward until only embers danced across the ground. The Witch Queen smiled faintly. "You've taken the first step. When the next fire calls, you will come to me." And then she was gone, her image dissolving into sparks. The exhaustion hit like a hammer. I fell to my knees, shaking. The fire died with a soft hiss, leaving only smoke and the faint glow of ash. Drake ran to me, his eyes wide, his hands gripping my shoulders. "Rhea, what the hell did you—" I pressed my forehead against his chest, trembling. I think I just answered someone's call." He looked around at the scorched earth, at the vampires reduced to nothing but dust. "Whatever that was," he said quietly, "it just saved us." The night bled into dawn. Smoke still curled from the forest beyond Blood Moon territory, the last whisper of the vampire army's retreat. The air was thick with the scent of blood, fire, and wet earth, and beneath it all, the quiet pulse of magic that was now, unmistakably, mine. I stood on the cliff above the forest, the wind pulling my hair loose from its braid. The world below looked like a wound slowly healing. Wolves were helping one another back to the pack house. Healers rushed between them, carrying herbs and bandages. There was grief, exhaustion, but also something else, something fierce. Drake's footsteps were soft behind me, but I didn't need to turn to know it was him. His presence was a heat I could always feel steady, grounding, constant. "You should be resting," he said quietly. I smiled faintly. "You've been saying that since the first time I met you. And you've been ignoring it ever since." I finally turned. He looked rough dirt smeared across his cheek, blood crusted along one arm but alive. His golden eyes found me, and for a moment the world went still. "You did it," he said softly. "You burned them to ash." "No," I corrected, stepping closer until the heat between us sparked. "We did." His hands came to rest on my waist, careful but claiming. "You always scare the hell out of me, Rhea." "You're always welcome to the club," I whispered. I scared myself, because I had. When the fire came, when my bloodline finally awakened, it hadn't felt like control. It had felt like surrender. 1,000 voices had screamed through me, the ancient power of witches and wolves alike, and I'd thought it would tear me apart. But somehow, Drake's voice had been the anchor through the chaos. Just his name, Rhea, and the fire had obeyed. Now that same fire lived quietly under my skin, waiting. Below us, the first rays of sunlight kissed the wreckage. Smoke rose, glowing gold in the light. It looked like the world was exhaling after holding its breath too long. "They'll come for us again," Drake said after a while. "The vampires, the witch councils, maybe even the gods for all I know." I looked up at him, the wind tangling between us. "Then let's give them a reason to stay afraid." Something dangerous and proud flickered in his gaze. He leaned down and pressed his forehead against mine. "My Luna," he murmured, the title sounding like a promise and a prayer. "My Alpha," I breathed back. The bond surged between us, warm and alive, wrapping around our souls like fire and moonlight colliding. I reached up, brushing my fingers along his jaw, and that's when it happened. The mark at my collarbone, the lunar sigil that had once burned with his bite, flared bright gold, then red, then both at once, a fusion of sun and blood. It pulsed once, twice, and the earth answered. The ground trembled beneath our feet, the sky darkened, and for a heartbeat I heard her voice again, soft, endless, echoing through the wind. "Now you are ready, daughter of fire. Now the war begins." The Witch Queen. Her whisper wasn't a threat this time, it was a summons. I opened my eyes. The glow dimmed, fading back beneath my skin, but I could still feel her there, somewhere far beyond this world, watching. Drake's fingers tightened around mine. "What did you hear?" I hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Nothing we can't handle." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then whatever comes next." "We face it together," I finished for him. He kissed me, slow and deep, and for that breath of a moment there was no war, no prophecy, no curse, only us. When we finally pulled apart, I looked out across the forest one last time. The horizon burned gold, and the last of the smoke rose like ghosts leaving the earth behind. The world wasn't at peace, not yet. Maybe it never would be, but for the first time I wasn't afraid of what lived inside me. Because it wasn't a curse, it was a crown. And I intended to wear it. As we walked back toward the pack house, the wolves bowed their heads. Kara met my gaze from across the clearing, her expression unreadable, but she nodded once before turning away. Acceptance, at last. Morella stood by the stairs, her eyes sharp but approving. "You've awakened the flame," she said. "Try not to burn the world down." "No promises," I said with a grin. Drake chuckled, pulling me against his side as we stepped through the doorway. Behind us, the wind carried the scent of ash and wildflowers. The dawn light spilled across the blood moon crest carved above the entrance, and for just a heartbeat it shimmered. Like something ancient had bowed its head in respect. The war hadn't ended. It had only changed shape. But the blood moon pack had their Luna. The world had its bridge. And the flame, my flame, had finally found a home. The war had ended, but the aftermath was a battlefield of its own. Broken trees, scorched earth, shattered walls, everything looked like the world itself had fought to breathe. For days, Drake and I worked side by side, helping the pack rebuild what the fire and blood had taken. He lifted heavy beams while I used my still tingling magic to restore burned ground, coaxing green shoots back through ash. The scent of earth and rain mixed with the faint smoke that still lingered. Every sunrise felt like a promise, a reminder that we'd survived. By the end of the week, laughter slowly began to replace the silence. The pack was healing. We were healing. Tonight, they gathered under the full moon not to fight, but to celebrate. Lights lit the courtyard, music hummed through the air, and long tables were set with food and ale. Everyone cheered and danced, their spirits wild again. I stood near the steps of the pack house, a little overwhelmed, watching everyone come together. Drake appeared beside me, wearing that half smirk that always made my knees a little weak. "Ready, Luna?" he murmured. My heart skipped. You really shouldn't call me that yet. He arched a brow. Oh, I think they're about to make it official. Before I could respond, a hush spread through the crowd. One by one, the pack turned toward me, faces I'd once feared or avoided now smiling with respect, with trust. Drake took my hand and stepped forward with me. Tonight, he said, his voice deep and proud, we honor the woman who stood when the world burned, the one who saved this pack, and me. He turned to me, eyes glinting gold. Rhiannon Hurt, our Luna. Cheers erupted loud, raw, joyful. Wolves howled, voices carrying through the night sky. My chest tightened, tears stinging my eyes. I took a breath and stepped forward. I don't even know what to say. They quieted again, waiting. I'm not a hero, I began, my voice trembling but steady. We all fought, we all bled. This pack stood together, and that's why we're still here. Because unity is stronger than fear. I turned slightly toward Drake, unable to help the soft smile that tugged my lips. And because we have a wise and strong alpha who never gives up on his people. The crowd cheered again, stomping feet and clapping. But through the noise, I heard Drake's voice in my mind, smooth and teasing. Are you flirting with me, mate? I hid my grin, keeping my gaze on the crowd as I mind-linked back. Maybe, just a little. Careful, his voice purred in my head. You might start something we can't finish here. I bit my lip to keep from laughing, then whispered through the link. After this celebration, I need a vacation, away from here. He leaned closer, his warm breath brushing my ear. Yes, Mum. I looked up at the stars, bright, clean, endless. The war was behind us. The world was quiet again. For the first time since I arrived, this place didn't feel like a cage. It felt like home. And when Drake's hand slipped into mine, I knew wherever we went next, whatever fire came again, we'd face it together. And for Micah, he survived. Barely, but he did. The bond between us kept him tethered long enough for the healers to reach him. For days he drifted between life and death, and every time my heart faltered, his did too. When he finally woke, his first words were, "Next time you decide to burn half a vampire army, maybe warn me first." Typical Micah, half dead and still sarcastic. He said he felt the same fire that saved me, move through him, not killing him, but changing something deep within. Maybe that's the mark of the old bloodline, or maybe just the stubbornness we share. Either way, he's alive, training again, complaining again, and for now that's enough. Because after everything, the blood, the loss, the fire, we're still here. Together. Still burning.
But it's all